My friend forced me to cheat on my fiancé. Of course, karma got me as my husband somehow found out.
Show me your friend, and I will tell you who you are. I never took that saying seriously, but after what Melody and I did, it has become my motto. Like, I don't even know what happened or how it happened, but it happened. I still can't believe I let Melody talk me into doing something that would haunt me till I am 6 feet under the ground. I know you may think I am overreacting or exaggerating, but believe me when I say this. I am not. As it stands now, I have nothing and nobody to my name. Even as I type this, I am still shocked as to how everything turned out. Ladies and gentlemen, the three of us, me, myself and I thought it was a great idea to humor the advice and stupid suggestions of the person we called a friend, and the aftermath of the advice, disastrous. Words cannot even describe how I feel now. I can't even get angry at Melody because if only I had been more careful and behaved more like a wife instead of a silly teenage girl, all this wouldn't have been happening. Ladies and gentlemen, I am writing this from the not-so-comfortable seat in my car. Yes, my car. I could rant all day and beat myself up for years to come, but I want you all to know the full story, and then I would actually like it if you guys judge the matter. I mean, there isn't much to judge, but still I would like it if you guys did. It's currently 12:30 a.m., and I have a meeting in the next 9 hours, and the outcome of that meeting would determine how the rest of my life would go. Now let me take you back to the beginning. When and how I met the woman who made me lose everything over a silly and stupid bet. I don't even know how I would get through this whole story because I would always cry each time I remember everything that has happened to this very moment. Now my tears are that of anger and regret. I really hope I can control my emotions to write this. Now let the journey begin. Hi, my name is Sarah, and I was born as an only girl to a family that already birthed 5 boys. So as you can imagine, I was spoiled silly. We lived in, and to be honest, growing up with boys was quite fun, but I always had that desperate feeling of wanting a sister around me. Someone I could talk with about girl stuff, so you can imagine my excitement when I met Melody, and we immediately clicked. Melody was a blonde while I was a brunette. As a blonde and brunette duo who weren't among the popular and cool kids, we were always hit with jokes from guys during our high school days, but all that changed when we entered college. We both got accepted into Florida State University. I studied theater arts while Melody studied psychology. Now I don't want to make this longer than it should be, but I will tell you that the courses we studied in college really played a huge role in our college and dating lives. We had this thing, or rather the pact we made with each other, and it really worked till we both graduated. The pact was that we wouldn't date till a certain age. To be honest, I don't know why that pact was even made in the first place. We didn't even have any luck with guys till our final year in college, and that was mostly because we both decided that we would start attending parties and go on various adventures that college students go on. It didn't really affect our studies, but I personally feel like Melody changed after all that. Melody had always been a quiet and reserved girl, but once we started attending those parties, she developed a wild side. She would always come back to our hostel wasted and high, or even not come back at all. Don't get me wrong here, I am not trying to say that she was the bad one and I was the good one. Oh heavens, no. If anything, I feel like I was the bad one, but I could control myself and hold down alcohol, but not Melody. She was like a bird that they let out of its cage after years of being inside it. She just wanted to do and try everything. If I decide to talk about all the things Melody and I did in college, then trust me, you would not even be able to drop your phone or PC till the next day, so let's move forward to the next part of my downfall. Now, after we graduated, we both moved into our own place and started working. She worked while I worked in a school by day and at a bar by night. I chose those 2 choices because I wanted to. I've always loved children, but I also love the nightlife, so I figured why not have 2 of them? Things were going really well for both of us, except we couldn't seem to find a decent man to enter a relationship with. All that changed when we met Andre and Louis. Louis and Melody didn't really like each other when they first met. In fact, they hated each other so much even a stranger could feel the hatred between them, but Andre and I feel head over heels in love with each other the very moment we met. Melody wasn't in support of it at first, and even Louis didn't approve of it, but 4 dates and 2 fights later, the 4 of us were seated in a 5-star restaurant having a double date. Just when I thought everything was going well, Andre proposes to me and, well, of course I said yes. Why wouldn't I? Louis proposed to Melody at my wedding, and before you start saying that he should have waited till the next day or that he stole the spotlight from me, he didn't. I actually wanted him to do it on that day, and I helped plan everything out. She said yes, and honestly, that just made the wedding 100 times better. Now this is where everything gets interesting. I got married before Melody, but I actually convinced, or rather nagged to Andre that I wanted to have our honeymoon at the same time and place Melody and Lois had theirs. I know. It was too much, and honestly, I don't even know I wanted to do that, but Andre, being the sweet and lovely husband that he is, he agreed to my crazy request, and we postponed our honeymoon till after Melody and Louis's wedding. We both traveled to Rome for our honeymoon, and honestly, it was really nice. We visited many beautiful sites, such as the Trevi Fountain and the Pantheon. We spent some weeks there before coming back to start life as a married couple. As you must have guessed, I resigned from my bar job and focused fully on being a teacher. And boy, was it boring. Don't get me wrong, I love kids, but when you see the same thing every day for 6 months straight, thighs tend to get boring. Melody, on the other hand, kept her job and seemed to enjoy it more now she was married. I don't know why or how that was even possible, but she loved it. We always met up for lunch 3 times a week and dinner with our husbands once a month. It became like a ritual for us, and we loved it. And now, before I go further, it's important to note that I already had a son for my husband while Melody and Louis had decided not to have kids. Well, it was mostly Melody's decision, and Louis loves her too much to say no. That alone should have been my excuse to not go along with Melody's plan. I should have told her that I was a mother and wife. I should have fought harder, but that's the problem. I couldn't fight harder because I didn't fight at all. I just let Melody talk me into it, and I swallowed everything hook, line, and sinker. How weak was I? How stupid no? How dumb was I? You know, it's easier to say yes, a stupid and dangerous plan, if it was coming from someone you trust. Sorry, I digress. I am just so upset that I threw caution to the wind and ended up here typing my life mistakes to strangers online so that they would learn from my mistakes. But enough of all that. Back to the story. On one of our usual lunch dates, Melody came in beaming with joy, and I couldn't tell why. I placed our orders while Melody was on her phone talking to her receptionist. I studied her closely to know if Louis had bought her some new jewelry, but there was nothing new on her. I looked outside, thinking that she had gotten a new car, but I saw her blue Mercedes-Benz parked across the street. I thought maybe she had been promoted, but she was now the head psychologist at the hospital she works in, so a promotion was not possible anymore. There was only one option left, and that was her being pregnant. Yes, maybe she had changed her mind, and now she was pregnant. As the thought crossed my mind, I started smiling, happy that our children would become best friends and maybe even end up as a couple. I was so lost in thought that Melody had to tap my hand in order for her to bring me back to reality. I looked at her and apologized for spacing out. That's fine. I guess I took too long on my call, but it's over and now our lunch date can properly begin, she said while smiling. Our food came and we started eating. While eating, Melody talked about her work and her patients. Yes, I know. The whole doctor-patient confidentiality, but then it's not like I was telling anyone ever, and I am pretty sure that if the tables were turned, I would do the same thing. We talked and laughed till it was 3:30 p.m. and it was time to leave. I was about finishing my drink when Melody reached out and grabbed my hand. I was shocked, so I kept the glass of juice down. I asked her what the matter was, and with a big smile, she told me that she had some wonderful news she wanted to share with me. I chuckled and told her that I already knew that he was pregnant. I was about to tell her that I hoped the child would be a girl when I saw the look on her face and stopped. She had this confused and slightly disgusted look on her face. When I asked her what the matter was, she didn't respond. She just said, "Who told you that ridiculous lie?" I was speechless. So she wasn't pregnant. But why was she so happy? I apologized and explained that I assumed she was pregnant because of the way she had been acting since she arrived. I further told her that I didn't see any new car or jewelry, so I ruled that out, and I knew she couldn't be promoted anymore at her job, so that was also out. Eliminating these two left me with the baby, but if that is also wrong, then what's the matter? After listening to me, she smiled, took my left hand and placed it in between both her hands before saying the words that still haunt me to this day. I had just picked up my glass of juice to drink when she said these words. "I want us to sleep with each other's husband." The moment those words left her mouth, the remaining contents of my mouth found its way to her face. "What the hell? Why would you do that?" she yelled, but not so loud. She began wiping her face while I sat there looking at her. She must be joking. She had to be. I told myself otherwise. Why would she say something so silly and unreasonable? You know, a normal person would have laughed at Melody, gotten up, left the restaurant, gone home, and never speak of it again. But then there's me. The unbelievably stupid character who just sat there and waited for Melody to explain. I mean, what other explanation did I need? It was a stupid idea, and a dangerous one at that. A part of me wanted to shun Melody and warn her never to bring it up, but then another part of me wanted to know how and why she came up with such an idea. "What are you talking about?" I finally asked Melody, and she said that she heard about it from her colleague. She said that her colleague and her sister had done it with their boyfriends, and it was just to test their loyalty. Did you see the keyword there? No? All right, I will tell you. The keyword was boyfriends, not husbands. Boyfriends, and yet my supposed best friend was suggesting something so similar and stupid to me. People of this fine earth, do you know what I did after Melody finished explaining everything to me? I told her that I would think about it and give her my response the next day. That night, as I laid in bed with my husband, I actually thought about how it would feel to share the same bed with Louis. I wasn't a bad wife or anything, but after having that conversation with Melody, my curiosity got the best of me. The next day, I called her up and told her I was going to go through with her plan. She was so happy that she squealed into the phone. She said she would text me the details later before she hung up. As I laid down on my bed, a million thoughts ran through my head, but only 4 words seemed to stand out. What have I gotten myself into? I got her text later that day. She stated that we would become so impossible that our husbands would come to complain to us, but eventually take comfort in us. Melody's husband would come to complain to me about Melody, but over time I would take advantage of his vulnerability and sleep with him. Okay, pause. How in the name of all things beautiful did I even think that any of this was okay? How was it okay to allow your friend to seduce your husband? How was it even okay to think about it? I would have sworn that Melody was a witch if I didn't know her so well. I agreed, and we were meant to start the next day. Now I know my husband and I know how to push his buttons. I did all the things that Andre didn't like and made it seem like Melody was the only one he could complain to about me. The same thing was happening to Louis, and after 3 days, I got a call from Louis complaining that Melody had suddenly changed. He even told me that he suspected her of cheating on him, but I told him that she would not do that to him. Before long, Louis and I started meeting outside to talk about Melody, and I think Andre and Melody also started meeting. Melody and I always meet secretly to go about our plan and to see how everything is going. Although it was hard to treat my baby daddy and husband in such a manner, it was funny to hear about it from him. One day, Melody called me and told me that it was time to seduce and sleep with them. Again, my dumb self did not see the problem with this plan. I didn't shout at her nor demand that she stop. Instead, I agreed and waited for my usual meetup with Louis, but asked him to come over to the house. Andre was going to be with Melody, so I had the house to myself all night. I had dropped my son at my parents' house, so it was just the 2 of us. When Louis arrived, I brought out a bottle of wine and poured a glass for each of us. After his 3rd cup, Louis was already drunk, but not too drunk not to know when to stop. The both of us were on the floor talking when we started leaning close to each other. This was it, I thought. Louis would remember how much he loved Melody and stop. The only problem was, he wasn't stopping and neither was I. What was happening? Why wasn't I stopping? I didn't stop when our lips met. I didn't stop when we got up from the floor, and I didn't stop till the only thing I could see and hear was nothing. I woke up the next morning, but there was no Louis. As I tried to recall what happened, I heard the tap running in the bathroom. I noticed that I was completely naked and immediately reached for the bedcloth to tie around my body. Almost immediately, the events of the previous night flood my mind and I almost fall down. What have I done? I had cheated on my husband. I got up and moved to the bathroom. I knocked on the door and said, "Louis, come outside, we need to talk about Lay." But before I could finish my sentence, my husband came out of the bathroom tying a towel on his waist. I froze. What was happening? Why was he back so soon? Did he see Louis? All these thoughts ran through my head, but I was interrupted by Andre's voice. "What happened to Louis?" he asked while drying his hair. "Oh, nothing. Nothing. He had called me last night to talk about Melody and the gift he wanted to get her, but I dozed off on him, so I felt bad and wanted to finish the conversation." I lied. He looked at me and down at my hand before saying, "But you don't have your phone." I froze, but then remembered that I was wearing one of my AirPods, so I pointed to it and said I was leaving a voice message for him. Stupid, I know, but somehow it worked, and soon Andre left for work. The moment he left, I called Melody, but she didn't pick up. I tried again, but it went to voicemail instead. I panicked and was scared for the worst. What if Louis saw Andre driving out of his house and confronted Melody? I immediately took a shower and drove to Melody's place. I noticed that her car wasn't there, so I went to her workplace. I was so relieved to see her car, but even more relieved to see Melody, and she was all right. I pulled her aside and asked her where her phone was. She told me that she left it at home. She had an early appointment that she couldn't miss. I heaved a sigh of relief, but then told her that we needed to talk. She asked me to wait for her since it was almost her lunch break, and I agreed. Once Melody was free, we went to a cafe, sat down, then I broke down. I told Melody what happened, and she didn't seem bothered or upset. Her face just went blank. She didn't say anything. She just got up, slapped me, and left. I'm still seating in my car, in front of the cafe. My left cheek still stings from the slap. I'm afraid to go home. What if Andre finds out? What if Melody tells him? Did Melody not go through with her plan? And where was Louis? Guys, that's where I stop for now. I'll update you all if anything happens. Hey guys, it's me again. I have an update for you guys, and to be honest, it's quite a lot, but I promised to give you guys an update, so here it is. Now, the last time I wrote something, I had just been slapped by Melody inside a cafe, and I didn't know if I should go home or not. After an hour of just sitting in my car, I decided to go home. I got home and Andre was home, but something felt off. Andre wasn't his usual self. He seemed distant and cold towards me. What if he knows now? I asked myself. I couldn't bring myself to ask him, so I just let it be. After dinner, Andre took a bath and got into bed. Next thing I knew, he was cuddling me. I was confused and asked him if he was all right. He said he was fine and that he just had a rough day at work, but being with me just made everything better. I smiled and let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. He didn't know. I was safe. The next day was normal with Andre. The moment he left for work, I tried to call Melody, and to my greatest surprise, she picked the call. "What?" she answered. "Mel, we need to talk," I said softly. Mel was a name I always called her when I wanted us to fix things between us. We agreed to meet at the park, and once we saw each other, I started crying. Next thing I knew, Melody started crying too. She apologized for slapping me and also told me that she had slept with Andre too. I was shattered, but at least now she would call it quits to this silly game of hers, and she did. I asked her if Louis acted strange to her, but she said no. Melody said that Louis had been acting normal as though nothing happened. That was the main reason she slapped me. She was hurt that Louis could easily keep his infidelity from her. Yes, I know. She was actually trying to play the victim. But when I told her about Andre, she kept quiet. We talked for another 30 minutes before going back to our houses. I finally thought that everything was fine now. Oh, how wrong I was. The disaster. One day I got a call from Louis, asking me to meet him. I didn't want to, but then he threatened to tell Andre what happened, and I was left with no choice. I told him to meet me at the park the next day. When Louis came, he looked terrible. He had eye bags under his eyes, his hair was messy, and he just looked off. I asked him what happened, but he wouldn't say anything. After 3 minutes of silence, he grabs my hands and says, "I can't take this anymore. Sarah, I need you." Huh? I retrieve my hands and shift a bit before asking him what he meant. He told me that he hasn't been able to think straight since that night. He said he tried to forget everything, but he couldn't. He proceeds to go down on his knees to beg me. I couldn't take it anymore. I just ran. Ran to my car, then drove home, not caring that I left him on his knees in a public place. I didn't know what to do. Should I call Melody? Would she even believe me? Would she believe that the very man that worshipped the ground she walked was asking me to be his? No, no, she wouldn't believe me. I can't even believe it. But what do I do? What? I was so lost in thought that I didn't hear Andre walk in. I had already put our son to sleep, so it was just me in the living room. Andre came in and gave me a peck on my cheek. The moment he came close, I perceived something, but I couldn't wrap my head around what it was at that moment, so I just let it go. That night was so passionate for both of us that I immediately forgot about Louis and his confession. The next day was a Sunday, and Andre informed me that he would be taking a work trip in the next 4 days. I had no issues with it. At least it would give me time to think about Louis and his issues. Melody and I didn't talk for some days, and I was worried Louis told her how he felt about me. I really wished everything would just go back to normal, but sadly, that would never work. On the day of Andres' work trip, he left for the airport around 8 a.m., so you can imagine my surprise when Louis called to see me at his place. I refused to come, then he offered to take me somewhere else. I realized that I had to turn him down once and for all, so I decided to meet him. We met at what seemed to be a small bed and breakfast. I told him that I didn't want to be there, but he said all he wanted to do was talk and that once it's over, I would never hear from him again. I didn't understand his last statement, but I agreed. Ladies and gentlemen, what I saw and heard was not, and I repeat, not what I expected. Just behind the door was Melody snuggling with my husband, the one who was meant to be on a work trip. The moment Melody saw me, she jumped off him and asked me what I was doing there. "What am I doing here? Why are you here with my husband?" I shouted. Melody was about to speak when Louis slammed the door and ordered us both to sit down and keep quiet. Now Andre got up and walked up to me and said, "Your husband? The same husband you allowed your friend to seduce?" The moment he said that, my eyes widened. He knew. "Yes, I know. Matter of fact, we both know," he said while pointing to Louis. "You both thought we wouldn't figure out a pattern? There was no way you both would suddenly start acting up at the same time. We wanted to know what the goal was, and sadly you showed us. You see, that night you had your steamy session with Louis, we both saw it coming. I saw it coming, but I wanted to see how far you'd actually go." As he said those words, tears filled my eyes and I started apologizing. "What are you sorry for? You didn't sleep with Louis. Yes, you see, unlike you, Louis has some self-respect. I was the one you slept with, but I wore Louis's clothes and smelt like him. Luckily, you were too drunk to even notice." Upon hearing this, Melody started laughing. "You're lying. I was with you the whole night, remember?" she said shamelessly. "No, my dear, you fell asleep and I went home. Oh, and did. You tell your friend that you have been trying to seduce me way before all this." The moment he said this, I looked at Melody, but she didn't say a word. "Oh yes, your wonderful friend here has been trying to lure me to bed, and she came up with this stupid plan as the perfect way to get me. But she wanted to keep me forever. That's why I lied that I was going to leave you for her. She immediately got the divorce papers signed and left Louis. Now back to the same quest I asked earlier. Your husband? Oh no. I'm sorry, but this marriage is over and I am taking my son with me." Without another word, he walked out with Louis, and I haven't seen him or my son. I still have the divorce papers, but I can't sign it. I don't know what happened to Melody after all that. And to be honest with you, I really hope she never sees happiness ever again. That's all, guys. There's no more update. I lost my son, husband, and house in all this mess. Guess I deserved it, though. My so-called husband is planning on ruining my life for a very small mistake I made. I don't know why he thinks it's okay to do what he's planning to do. Yes, I cheated on him, but I guess it was going to happen one way or another. He's a mommy's boy, and this is just me putting it mildly. I just couldn't take it anymore, and I had to give in to the temptation that kept on coming up. He should feel glad that I waited so long to cheat on his sorry self. That man had it coming one day or another, and he shouldn't even try to make it seem like he's surprised. You don't marry a woman, then suddenly try to change her. It's not your place, and it can never be your place to do that. I'm my own person, and he was very well aware of this before we got married. We had no prior conversation that stated I wasn't good enough, or I had to be someone else to please him and his annoying family. So why did everything suddenly get thrown on me? My name is Anastasia, and I'm a 24-year-old dancer. Yes, I'm a dancer, and it's something I love doing. I make money from it, and I'm also a choreographer, so I get gigs to teach people how to dance. But as it seems right now, my husband is using that against me and wants to get me fired. I think it's better to say that he's been using this fact against me for a very long time. According to him, I'm just too exposed to a lot of men. The name of my husband is Collins, and he's a 28-year-old banker. You guys see the difference, right? He's a banker, and I'm a dancer. Of course, we have different professions, and it can be very difficult to be a couple, but somehow we made it work, and we got married. What's making me more upset is the fact that we met while I was working at a party he was invited to. He literally spotted me while I was working, and now he's trying to say my job is bad. We exchanged numbers the first day we met, but none of us contacted each other for almost 5 months after exchanging numbers. I didn't know his age range back then because we hardly said much during the party. I actually thought he was my age mate because he looked like me in some kind of way. Fast forward to the day we finally contacted each other. Well, he contacted me first and asked me out on a date. I was less busy and decided to go. I didn't expect us to connect the way we did, and boom, after 2 years, we got married. I was 23 when we got married, and we've been married for just a year. I was just 23 years old when I got married. Of course, I'm still in my youth, and I'm not the most mature person. In fact, I never claimed to be mature. Was I ready for marriage before I got married? Well, I don't really know the answer to that question. I liked Collins a lot, and that's the only word I'm going to use. I don't know if love is the right word to use in this situation. I've never been in love, and I've never fallen for someone in my entire life. It sounds unbelievable, but that's the truth. I've been in relationships, and I've dated a few people. I liked them a lot, and we spent a lot of time together. But it's never been to an extent where I feel like I'm madly in love with this person and cannot wait to spend my entire life with them. Maybe that's because I'm not an overly emotional person, or because I'm always focused on working and earning money. But with Collins, I decided to get married to him because I felt like he was the most stable man if ever dated. Before, I just dated other dancers or artists because those were the kind of people I was mostly around. It was never because I preferred a certain profession. So when I met Collins, I just believed that he was the right man for me because he seemed like the serious type. I also liked the fact that he was a banker. I mean, dating a banker is far better than dating a dancer or an artist. Most artists are not ready to settle down. I felt like I was ready to get married, but I wasn't sure of it. But when I realized Collins was also ready to get married, I felt like it was for the best. So I said yes when he proposed, and then we tied the knot. I've always wanted to be that girl with a stable life. I've never really liked traveling many times as a result of work, but it's what I love doing and I can't stop. Even though I need to keep in shape everything because of my job, I told Collins I was ready to start a family with him 2 years into our marriage. That was the plan, and he didn't have any problem with it. Did I meet his annoying family before we got married? Of course, I met his whole family a total of 4 times before we tied the knot. They were well behaved throughout, and they never gave me any reason to feel like I was marrying into the wrong family. But 2 weeks after the wedding, it was war. Yes, war. And this isn't me exaggerating. I'm not exaggerating at all, and I don't think anyone else can understand my plight. Collins comes from a very big family. When I say big family, I mean that he has several siblings and cousins. His house is almost like an extended family because almost all his relatives, both married and single, live there. If you're wondering why that's the case, it's because his father was once a very rich man and he built a very exaggerated house. The house is actually quite big, and it has other houses in the property. According to what I was told, he got addicted to gambling and lost all the money within 2 years. Well, I don't know how true the story is, but this is what Collins told me. His father is late now. I heard he died in a car accident one night after drunk driving. So after his death, most family members decided it was a good idea to move into the house because they felt it was very big and it could save all of them the cost of rent. Now guys, I know you all are wondering how this has anything to do with the story, but trust me, it does. After the marriage, Collins asked me to follow him to his family house for their annual meeting, and I decided to follow him because, of course, I'm his wife and I should support him in situations like that. But I regretted the decision immediately when I got the family house, because I realized that they were just a big hurdle filled with bullies and people that talked down on other people just to make themselves feel better. I didn't get why everyone felt like it was right to comment on my body and tell me that I had to change. The fact that I was a dancer suddenly became a problem, and his mother made a very big fuss about it when I visited them during the annual meeting with Collins. She kept rubbing it in my face and telling me that dancing was not a real profession, and that I was just wasting my time and ruining my life because it was not a real profession, and it exposed me to a lot of unpalatable things. I had to ask her why my profession was suddenly a problem after the marriage, and why she didn't tell me everything before the marriage. That's when I discovered that Collins did not tell them I was a dancer before the marriage. He actually told them that I was a nurse and that I was a graduate of one big school like that. I was so surprised and angry that I didn't even know what to do with myself. I couldn't believe that Collins would lie about my profession and paint me out to be someone I was not. It was even more ridiculous that he had to hide my true profession from his family before they thought I was fit to be his wife. Another stupid thing is the fact that Collins was ashamed of telling his family that I was a dancer. I pulled him to the side and I asked him why he had to lie to his family and make it seem like I was a nurse when I was just a dancer. I'm a dancer and I'm proud of it. I've never been ashamed of what I do, and I don't think there's a reason for me to be ashamed of something that gives me money. I earned my satisfaction and I didn't beg from anyone or ask anyone to give me money. I would rather be a dancer than be roaming on the streets. The fact that his family thought they were better than me for some reason was just funny. They are the ones squatting with each other and living in a house that they didn't even build. They are basically jobless with nothing serious to do, and they are squatting together to save rent, yet they feel like they could dictate what profession I was into. If I had been getting judged by a multi-career family with several people in different fields that were actually successful in what they did and made a good living out of it, I would have actually felt bad. But I was getting judged by a family that couldn't even afford to stay on their own. What hurt me most was the fact that Collins just sat there and let them speak ill of me. So, when I call him foolish, don't judge me for it. Every decision he makes has to be dictated by his mother. If I knew I was getting married to a mummy's boy, I would have ran as far as my legs could carry me. He was so indecisive and quiet. I mean, how do you sit down in front of your family, then let them say whatever they want about your wife? How do you not say anything to defend her or make her feel better? It was like he made them believe I was a nurse so I wouldn't get quizzed by them and run away. Then, when he finally married me, he brought me to his house so they could charge me and make me get another job. I know some goody two-shoes women would try to tell me I should have just quit my job, but I'll say this ahead of time. I don't want any advice from those kinds of women because it just never makes sense. You met me as a dancer, then your entitled foolish self wants to change me after we tied the knot? If I quit working and stay at home to be your perfect wife just to shut you up, in less than 2 years, you'd still be the same man telling me I was feeding off your money and bringing nothing to the table. How ironic is that, and why would I want to be in that kind of situation? If I'd quit my job, Collins and his family would still try to talk down on me and make me feel like crap. So I made sure I didn't make such mistakes or get myself in such a compromising situation. It was just not something I was willing to do. When we got home that day after the annual family meeting, I was so angry that I didn't try to contain my anger or hide how I felt inside. I had to ask Collins why he thought it was right to sit silently at a gathering where my character was being butchered. No excuse. He had no excuse and couldn't come up with anything but the fact that he saw some truth in what they were saying. Yes, he says that to me. I don't even know why I married a banker. Maybe the artists I used to date were not ready to settle down, but at least they defended me in situations that were insulting. They never stood back and watched me get my character assassinated for something as trivial as being a dancer. That day, we had a very long argument, and I made it clear to Collins that I would not be changing my job or quitting it. I told him that I would remain a dancer, and there was absolutely nothing he could do about it. After that day, it was like I unleashed a beast in Collins. He became his family's puppet, and they tried to frustrate me together. He suddenly got upset with visiting his family and asking me to accompany him because he just wanted to see them talk ill of me and make me feel bad about myself. When I realized what he was trying to do, I decided to quit following him to his family house. I stopped accompanying him and told him he could go alone. He tried to make me feel like I was being unsupportive, but I rubbed it in his face and told him I didn't care. I finally got my peace of mind after I stopped going to his family house. I decided to spend more time at work instead of just sitting back at home and doing nothing in particular. I got a lot of gigs and shows that I had to work on. It was very fulfilling for me because after my wedding, my boss decided to give me fewer jobs because he felt like I would need to spend more time with my husband. But I guess he noticed that I wasn't really feeling the honeymoon bliss anymore, and he decided to get me back to work. More people had joined our dance team, and they were mostly guys. Yes, you read that right. I saw a pit of guys in our dance team, and it was quite surprising. Most of them looked more attractive than they should, and I actually anticipated going to work a lot. Yes, judge me for saying I found a few guys attractive. Well, that's the truth. I'm married and not blind, and so I don't think it's wrong for me to say what I see. They were very nice, and they always tried to come to me to ask me about the team since I worked longer than they did. I preferred speaking to them because I literally had a nagging husband and his jobless family waiting for me after work each day. I actually started regretting the fact that I got married as early as I did. I regretted it, and I still regret it. It's not something I'm scared of admitting because it's the absolute truth. When Collins noticed that I stopped going to see his family with him, he decided to bring his family to the house. I'm even getting angry just by recounting exactly what happened. I came back from work one day only to find that his sister, mother, and 2 of his cousins were at the house. Yes, you read that right, and it's actually true. They were at my house, and I was very surprised. I mean, it's not every day that you see something like that. I'd never brought anyone of my family members to the house before, and he's aware of it. There's never been a time when I tried to do that to him. I couldn't believe that he brought 4 people home without speaking to me first. Okay, I get that he's the owner of the house, but it only makes sense that he just tells me ahead of time even though he's not meant to ask for permission. After a stressful day at work, I came home to a very big bag of crap. Those people have to be the perfect definition of shameless people walking the surface of the earth. I couldn't even stay in the living room and watch TV without them bringing up discussions about my own body and how I was too thin. I hate his family. I hate them with an intense amount of passion. I don't care what anyone says because it is what it is. Collins, on the other hand, just sat there like he couldn't see what was going on. How do you expect me not to cheat on that kind of guy? A man that doesn't have a say on his own and only does things that his family asks him to do. That's the kind of man Collins is, and I was just not ready to take in any of their crap. I went to sleep in the room and waited for Collins so we could have a conversation, but he never came to the room. He spent the whole night entertaining his family, and I know this because I couldn't even get a wink of sleep as a result of the unnecessary noise they were all making. I tried to shake them off and get to sleep, but nothing that I tried worked. He preferred to spend the whole night whispering and laughing with his family rather than coming to the room to see his wife. I hadn't even started cheating on him back then, but can you guys see how foolish he was? Who wants to stay married to a mommy's boy? If you have seen the worst part of it, just listen to this. One day, while his mother, sister, and siblings were still at the house, something very annoying happened. I came back home after a stressful day at work only to be met by his annoying cousins, mother and sister. His mother told me she wanted to have a serious conversation with me. Of course, I innocently thought it was okay to sit down with her and talk. Maybe it was as a result of the stress at work, but I completely forgot that they hated me. At the end of the day, she ended up asking me why I was not pregnant yet. A go asks a woman why she isn't pregnant yet. She told me her son was not getting any younger and should already be a father. Well, I had to ask her why her son didn't get married earlier in his life to have a child, and why she wanted to make me the baby-making machine. I mean, I'm literally just 24 years old. I'm not saying I'm too young to have children, but I'm trying to say it doesn't make sense that I have to rush into things just because my husband is 4 years older than me. Besides, Collins and I already agreed ahead of time that we were not going to have children until we completed our 2 years anniversary. I spoke to Collins about what his mother says, and he told me he also wanted children and couldn't wait so long to have children. I told him I didn't want children yet, so there was no way I was going to get pressured into having children. It was a continuous back and forth, and I got tired of the problems in the marriage. But I made no move to fix any of those problems because I just didn't believe that they had anything to do with me. If anything, I'd always tried my best to manage his family, but they are so rude and annoying. Collins is a whole different story, and I just got fed up. So what did I do? I cheated. Why? Because I wanted to, and because I felt like I was married to a baby. I was tired of the marriage, but didn't have the guts to ask for a divorce, because I didn't want to end up homeless yet. I wanted to keep working and earn enough money to get my own apartment. I had a lot saved up before, but after I got married to Collins, I spent recklessly because he's a banker and earned enough money. I wasn't paying rent like I did before, and I wasn't paying the bills, so I bought a lot of expensive things. I only started saving when I realized my marriage to Collins was headed for doom. So, one of the guts in the dance team is my affair partner, and we hit things off after months of being friends. We slept together 2 nights after my 1-year wedding anniversary, and we have been together ever since. But I never thought Collins would end up finding out. Apparently, one of his nosy sisters decided to follow me to my dance studio, and she saw me kissing my affair partner outside the dance studio. My boss is aware of the relationship, but it's not his business, so he kept quiet. But Collins's nosy sister took a picture and sent it to Collins. I got home 2 days ago, and Collins decided to give me the scare of my life. The house was scattered and almost everything looked broken. He was so angry that he kept cursing and screaming all sorts of degrading words. I thought that would be all, but he sent me out of the house yesterday and burnt all my sneakers. He threw my things outside and locked me out. I'm staying at my affair partner's place now, but Collins is still after my peace. I heard from someone that he's planning to get me fired and humiliate me. I don't get why he even cares so much. He made the bed and I just slept on it. It's his fault as much as it's mine. But wanting to get me fired? It's just too much. Update. I'm now jobless, and it's all thanks to Collins. He wasn't joking when he promised to ruin my life. It's been 6 months, and I've witnessed hell, literally. Even after he sent me divorce papers 2 weeks later and I signed it, he made sure he got me fired. I never thought my boss would fire me, and I was so confident, but I don't know what deal Collins striked with him that made him fire me. I trusted my boss so much because I've worked with him for so long, and I still can't believe he fired me. Collins also hired some thugs to threaten my affair partner and tell him lies about me. He sent me out of the house 2 months after my divorce with Collins was finalized. I was living off the little I'd saved up and put all my hopes in getting spousal support. But I just discovered that I would not be getting any spousal support anytime soon. Apparently, our marriage was just 1 year, and I worked and earned enough to be independent and was not very reliant on him. My lawyer tried his best, but we had to settle for very little. Now, Collins has 6 months before he gets to pay me the little spousal support. I'm broke till then. Collins really did switch things up to ruin my life. The mommy's boy decided to teach me a lesson, and here I am, single and broke with no job. It definitely hurts.